physical games. Oh, wow, cool. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, I can open it. Oh, wow, touchy. Oh, that's nice. Digital games. Listen, it's no secret in the gaming industry where physical versus digital games, there's, well, one's better, one's worse. One's going to be great for the history of video games. The other one is just Satan's spawn. I don't know. But that's what we want to talk about in this video right here. Is one actually better than the other? Is the future only going to be one way, or is it going to be both ways? Or are we going to be somewhere new? I don't know. But that's what I want to talk about here. Physical versus digital games. Both have their faults and both have their positives. And some of them have opportunities that the other one doesn't provide. But, you know, instead of me just like babbling on about physical versus digital games and which one you hate more, I really don't care. You clicked on this video anyway, so I don't know, thanks for the click-through rate. Thanks for that. But, you know, instead of that, let's just get into it. I want to just jump into my first chapter. And if you want to just jump ahead, I got the notes down below if you want to just jump ahead to a certain chapter. I really don't care. So let's just get into it. Let's start with the first chapter here. So first off, before I get into this topic right here, hi, how you doing? You doing okay? I hope so in this day and age. But hey, thanks for clicking on this. If you haven't already, go ahead, click subscribe, and you know, welcome to the Evalt channel. We have other videos on this channel, so hope you enjoy those. But you know, hi. That's all. Hi, what's up? First and foremost, I think we need to go over the disdain or the disagreements between each of the physical and the digital. So I'm not really going to go over the positives of physical and digital because the positives have already spoken for themselves. Everyone has their defense for that because, you know, physical games, of course, everybody wants the physical games because conservation. It's simple as that. Conservation. Physical games bring that certainty of conservation of the video game that they love. It can be hung in a museum. It can be just put into any console. Well, not any console because backwards compatibility and stuff. Shut up. But, you know, it's certainty that it will be preserved through time. And there's a positive on that. You know, you buy the physical game and you can always play it. It won't be taken down from its digital platform like a lot of games have been before. And that's kind of rough, and that sucks. That sucks, but that's the positives of physical. Whereas digital, the positives are convenience. Honestly, it's convenience of just pressing A or X, or the Switch is A as well, but it's like on the side there. But you know what I mean. It's just kind of clicking on it, and then boom, you're good to go. You don't have to get up from your couch and put it in a disc. Or if you want to switch games, you don't have to get up, switch a disc, find a new disc, put it in. Oh, God. Oh, I know it's so hard. Ugh, America, right? But, you know, it's just there of convenience. And sometimes you can just go into digital platform stores like the Xbox store, the PlayStation store, the eShop, right? And just buy these games digitally rather than going to a brick and mortar store and just interacting with people. Yikes. But you know, it's just convenience, and I can just end it there. But where does the disdain come from? Where does the disagreements come from each one of them? Especially on physical. Why are we going digital? Ugh, God, why? What's up with that? Well, there's some disdain or there's some disagreements and there's just some hate for physical games, mostly because we're going into what's called the minimal age. Have I gone to the minimal age? Nobody asked you, but you know, we're now into the minimal age where we're thinking about less. And that the one person on Netflix who says like, oh, does this bring you joy? Yeah, Marie Kondo. I got word. It's Marie Kondo. But Marie Kondo, where she just says like, oh, pick this up. Does it give you joy? No, throw it away.
No joy.
But that's where we're at. That's where everybody's at. That's why everybody's trying to achieve, is to be a much cleaner environment, much more reduced. And sometimes you think about all the physical games you purchased throughout the years. We're not just talking about this generation of video games. We're talking like N64. We're talking Genesis. We're talking Atari 6400, whatever. But we're going all the way back, right? And you have all these physical game collections, and you have to think to yourself, like, is this amount of space really worth having? It's just a lot right now. I can't. It's just too much. It's too much space. Stop. But that's what we have to think about, is that how much is that physical game collection worth to you to have this much space and bookshelves and like all this mass like going on in your house? For some people, it is worth it. It totally is. It's worth it. I can think of Scott the Woz and Beat 'em Ups, the YouTubers on here. If you don't know who they are, I don't know. But I can think of those who have great game collections, and they're very passionate about game preservation, and they're passionate about what they do, and it's worth it to them. Good on them. Great. But for people like me who, like, it's not that I don't like game preservation. It's just that I have to think about the space that I live in, or especially if you live in, Manhattan apartments. It's very small. You really have to think about what's taking up space, and physical games can add up in that mass. So it's not about like, they have to be smaller cases. It's just that we're in an age right now where we're living smaller, and we have to think about every single inch of our space and say, is this worth it? And there's where physical games kind of have a problem right there, because they do take up mass, they do take up space. If we want to build up a collection, unfortunately, we can't support every physical release that comes out. And that's just unfortunate. But I wouldn't say that's disdain. That's just why people tend to steer away from buying more physical and they go more digital. But on the flippity flop side, right? Where's the disdain that comes from? Where's the problem that comes from digital games? And I know there's, if you ask anybody on Twitter that's in game collection, they can tell you what the disdain is. But I want to take that a little bit further, right? Where I talk about minimal perspective in physical games, but in digital games, we have more of this sense of, what's the word? Yeah. Instant gratification. It's an epidemic right now. The American age, and not even just American, it's all across the globe right now, where it's just, let's say it together now, instant gratification. And there's a disdain where it comes in there, where you just pick up these games digitally. You don't really think anything of it. You don't really think about it sometimes. You just kind of say like, oh, that game's cheap, or, oh, and this is over here. And there's really no value behind that game that comes in. When you pick up a physical game, hold on, let me just pick up the thing that just dropped here. But I remember when I picked this up, when it first came out in 2020, where this game was incredibly important. I remember just holding it and just seeing value behind it, because I was waiting for Animal Crossing New Horizons, especially what was going on in the world when this game came out. If this is 10 years in the future, or don't Google it. Please don't Google it. But that's where it comes in, is that, you hold this game and you have value behind it, because wow, you open it up and you see the game cartridge. It's not in there. I'm playing it right now. It's in my Switch right now. But you kind of go in and say, wow, you see the art behind it. You see little images, and there's some value behind holding it. Whereas digital, I feel like you just kind of, oh, it's on sale, or oh, here it is. Instant gratification, download it, and you just start playing it. And there's no really sense of value to it. It's just kind of like something you click the button for, and there it is. And there's some, good sides to that. Like I said, you don't have to interact with people, especially during a pandemic. A lot of digital sales kept happening because you don't want to go into a store. And there's good things to that. But then it gets to a point where you don't really find values in video games and value behind the release of a video game, because it's just a pre-download, or it's just a click of a button. And, once again, let's just say it again, another time, instant gratification. Are you having fun yet? I'm not. But that's where it is. There's where the disdain comes in. And I think both sides have their faults. And I think both sides have their positives too. And I don't think gaming Twitter really agrees with that. I don't think Twitter agrees with anything ever of any genre. We're not talking about that right now, but they might have disagreements with that. But let's both agree here before we go further into this video that let's say, both have their positives. As I said before, they have their positives and both have their faults. It is what it is. It's not really about which one's better than the other, which one will make gamers angrier. I don't know. But I think digital makes gamers angry, but gamers are always angry. But sorry, I said it. But I want to go further into this. I want to go into my next chapter here about, going into that, saying that digital has its faults and physical doesn't, right? We have this disdain on Twitter saying that physical is the only way to go and digital should stop being digital. Blech. But I want to go into one important detail of the opportunity that digital gives that physical sometimes can't. And if you're a lover of indie games, you kind of see where this is going now. So, yeah, this next part is kind of like a self-promo, I guess you want to say, but it does relate to what I'm about to talk about. The reason why we haven't released a new Evalt video in a good while is because I was busy and releasing my first EP that I ever wrote and released, The Essence of Life. There it is, I hope, as Lizzie, who edits my videos, puts it right there. Yay. But I was too busy writing, producing, working with the voice actors, and then finally mixing, mastering, and releasing my first ever EP digitally. I don't have a physical release of The Essence of Life. It's just out on Spotify and Apple Music and Deezer, and it's also on Bandcamp. So if you want to listen to it, that'd be so cool. But also don't listen to it. I hate it. Please don't listen to it. I'm very embarrassed. But yeah, so going into that, yeah, I only released it digitally because I'm not part of a big studio. I'm not part of a publishing license. I'm not part of a whole marketing team and then the logistics of making the physical copies and actually releasing anything. And even talking about music, one of my favorite albums that came out this year, Post Malone's 12 Carat Toothache, Unashamed. It hasn't even come out on vinyl yet. It came out earlier this year, and the vinyl release is coming out in February. So even large record producing artists have to wait for a physical production like vinyl. So coming into that, The Essence of Life, yay. But coming into that, not all of us, in terms of us being artists, I guess, but not all game developers are part of a big studio. Not all game developers want to be even a part of a big game studio. If you watched the last video, if you did, about Obra Dinn and how Lucas Pope just left big studios to work on his own projects or his own passions. Not all of us are a part of a big studio, and not all of us want to be a part of a big studio. And big studios offer marketing teams, licensing teams, and logistics teams, and the actual publishers actually put out physical releases, right? That's why you get these things. If you ever try to do a physical release of anything, right? A physical release of music, a physical release of a book that you wrote, like self-publishing a book, it's expensive. It's a lot of expense, and not a lot of video game developers have that sort of expense. Talk about that. Yeah, putting out a physical edition of your video game is a high risk because there's costs involved, there's logistics involved, there's if anybody has interest in it, and there's a lot of money being put into it, and that's a high risk for these developers that have I love the marketing director behind, I think it was Among Us. It was on the Nintendo podcast, but she said that like she has the marketing budget of a pack of peanut M&Ms, and I'm like, that's perfect. But that's the thing, they have peanut M&M budgets and they can't afford those physical costs. So what do? They just digitally release it. They just put it on the Nintendo store. They just put it on Steam or the Xbox store. I can remember back in the the documentary. I can't remember. I'm losing. Maybe I should have researched before making a video. I'm just here making a video in front of a green screen. You know what you purchased or didn't purchase. But I remember the documentary where it was talking about the development behind Super Meat Boy and that they only released it digitally. And I remember the stress going even into that, putting it onto the Xbox store, and they kept looking at the arcade center or the digital platform that they were putting it on, and it wasn't there, and the stress involved with that, just releasing it digitally. I mean, even me going back to the essence of life. Yay, cool, great. But even that, I released it on Spotify and it just wasn't releasing. Like, it just wasn't coming up. And I was just stressing out, like, where'd it go? Like, what's happening? Or it just wasn't going anywhere. I was like, well, this is great. Thanks for that. Whereas like things like Bandcamp went up right away. Or for developers, itch.io or itch.io, right? It just kind of goes up. I've even heard from developers that putting it onto the Steam platforms, there's really no issues there. So they kind of just release it on Steam only or itch.io only. Whereas putting it on Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation digitally, it's a lot of stress and it's a lot of hardships and there's a lot of going back and forth between the teams. And even just that is just a lot of stress. And imagine trying to release a physical edition of this game and the logistics behind that and the costs behind that. It would never get released. And that's my point, is that there's a lot of opportunities that digital only games provide for developers that never got the opportunity to work in a big studio or have tried working in a big studio and just they didn't like it. It wasn't their thing. So we would never have games like Stardew Valley, for example. We wouldn't have Stardew Valley without a digital release. It has physical releases now, and that's great, but at first, it didn't. Shovel Knight, right? I hope these never got physical releases on release. Again, should I have researched this? Maybe, but here we are. You're still watching me, aren't you? Silly you. Talking about that, just like think of your favorites indie games that came out on release and they never got their physical releases. I can even think of Oxenfree, that was digital. I can think of like a ton of these games that they're out there, they're independent, they can't afford the cost of a physical. So when we have digital platforms that are reliable in most of the country, not always, but that are reliable to put your game out there, that gives so much opportunity for indie devs who have these ideas and they can actually present them to you and you can play these indie games that you love dearly, but unfortunately they don't have the costs for a physical release. Now, thank goodness that there's companies like Super Rare and Limited Run that actually take opportunities to make physical releases of the games that we love. They're limited as per the title of the company. I still don't have my physical copy of Oxenfree and probably never will because it's too much on eBay and I have bills to pay. But thank goodness that they have the opportunity to have a physical release that you can hold, right? Like my Obra Dinn, like I can actually open it up and it's really cool. But we can't forget that digital does give opportunities for these developers. And maybe someday, if it does become popular, they will have a physical release somewhere, or they will be signed to a big studio and have a physical release of a future game. But unfortunately, we don't have that right now for these indie devs. And I think there's some light behind that where digital does give this opportunity. It also gives opportunity to scammers. I understand that. It does give opportunity to people who just want to throw out like money grab games, right? And then you just download them. And you just don't think about it and it kind of spams you, but not speaking on personal experience at all. I'm very gullible, but that's just it, is that we can't forget the opportunity that digital gives. Physical is great, and in a perfect world, yes, every game that gets developed will have a physical release. In a perfect world that we unfortunately don't live in because everything's on fire right now. I don't know if you remember that, but everything's on fire right now. News flash. But like I said, in a perfect world, yeah, every game gets a physical release and everything's perfect and lovey-dovey, but it's not. So let's not discount digital games for being the disdain from everything else and saying that it will never preserve video games. But digital does give the power behind these indie devs that just want to share their passions with you. But here lies a problem with us. My hard drive's not big enough for all these indie games and all these big AAA titles like Call of Duty. That's 400 gigabytes. Why is that? I don't understand. But yeah, hard drive space is not the perfect thing. And physical games sometimes feel like there's not enough for it to go around. So where's the future then? Is it digital only? Is there another opportunity? Or is there just something that we're not thinking about? Let's go into the final chapter here. Originally, the compact disc was designed to have more space and more storage space than, the physical cartridge that we were before, like the Atari and the Nintendo 64, which the Nintendo 64 had a cartridge with discs around, and we're not going to get into that. But the compact disc was designed to be, hey, we can store more files onto this flat disc that's, a lot more convenient for the customers. And again, gives more storage space. Oh, wow, woohoo, celebrations, confetti, pew, pew, pew. That's editor Lizzie's job, to give me fire or confetti or, I don't know, do whatever you want. Pew, pew. But, and then we wanted bigger and better, and games got more advanced. So what started to come out? Well, I'm not saying this is like the invention for video games, but, it was out there. But the Blu-ray was invented, and Blu-ray discs. Wow, even more storage was added to this physical disc. First we had DVD compact disc, and now we got Blu-ray discs. Even more storage. Put more into the storage, please. Wow, cool. But then games got bigger and larger, and gamers demanded more graphics and God rays. And okay, so Bethesda demands God rays, but that's for another video. But we demanded more graphics. We demanded bigger worlds to explore and bigger, adventures and yada yada. Like we demand bigger and better. But unfortunately, it stopped at the Blu-ray disc. And then we had, even bigger Blu-ray disc. And then even further, we got multiple disc entries. I can even remember with Red Dead Redemption 2, there was the play disc and then there was an install disc. And it's just these two separate discs that you had to put in to like either play it or install it. And it's just like games got way too large, way too quick. And I remember when we were transitioning from the 360 to the Xbox One, or even PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, I believe, where the previous gen didn't have campaign missions because the discs couldn't hold enough space. So you could only play the campaign with the next generation, right? Whereas the old generation, they didn't have that. It was only multiplayer. And we had to tell customers that at GameStop. They're like,
hey, just so you know, there's no campaign in this. It's just multiplayer. Just putting it out there.
Because games got way too large and expansive. And now we're going into an age where games are still getting bigger, better graphics, and a lot more storage behind them. Especially if you're a Call of Duty game, or especially if you're a sports game for some reason. There's just way too much storage space for a sports game. Why is that? I don't understand, but I'm not a game developer, so what do I know? Even though it's a copy and paste every single year. Fight me. But that's just it, is that games are getting much larger and we don't have the hard drive space for it. And then came a new era of what's now called cloud gaming. Wow. We got the xCloud that, you can just go on Game Pass, and if it has a little cloud symbol, you can say play on the cloud because you don't have to install it to play it. And just like what I said before with digital games being instant gratification, you don't even have to download this game. You can just play it on the cloud, no problem. Where's the value in that? I should have said that in chapter 1, but I didn't. now we're here. But you can just play it on the cloud, no problems, unless you have a bad internet connection. And in that case, sucks to suck, I guess. But then we have other cloud game based prodigies like Luna or Stadia, right? These two companies that were created to actually, produce cloud games. And you can go on their stores, purchase a game, and then play it on the cloud. And wow, whoop-de-doo, all you have to have is like a little Chrome dongle or something, and then you have the little controller, and then there's no system involved because it's all on servers over in California somewhere, and you don't have to download anything because it just downloads on its own. And so because now games can get bigger and bigger and bigger, and now you can play on the cloud and there's no problems. And these companies are like Luna and Stadia, they're successful. No, wait, no. Are they? Are you playing Stadia? Are you playing Luna? Unless you're Brian McGinnis, you're not. But that's just it. Is that like these companies are getting bigger, but a lot of gamers still want that download. They still want that physical game. And I don't think cloud gaming right now is what gamers want right now because of internet connections right now. Not everyone has the best internet connection, and not everybody has the bandwidth. Not everybody has unlimited data or whatever you want to do. It seems to be the solution right now because there's no physical media that can hold up to these large amount of updates, right? And all these patches. There's not enough, and we're trying to come up with a solution here, but gamers don't want the cloud. But yet, gamers and also large wig companies are demanding bigger and better. So because we're going bigger and better in video games, it's kind of destroying the market for physical games because, as I said before, the compact disc was made to be more storage space, and there wasn't enough for that in the future. So then Blu-rays came around, and there's still not enough storage for the Blu-ray. So now we have nothing. There is no physical media right now that can store all this space. Right now, as we speak, there's no physical media right now that can store the amount of a Call of Duty game. And unless we can go backwards in graphics, and unless we can actually be satisfied with smaller rendered games, and without us complaining like,
oh, the graphics were just, or the art style is it's not enough for me.
I can think of the great title of As Dusk Falls, right? It's not the grandest game in the world with graphics and art style and blah. It's more like a storyboard come to life, but it's so impactful. And I don't really care about the art style. I think the art style is great, in my opinion, and in Liz's opinion, she liked it too. But it's going backwards in a way of graphics and high fidelity and frame rate and blah, blah. But it's going backwards in that way. I'm satisfied with it, but a lot of gamers were turned off of it from the art style. And all of these smaller games and all these indie games, a lot of the complaints are,
oh, the art style, oh, the graphics,
But unfortunately, to make these larger title games, first, if you want a physical media of it, you have to have physical media to actually store this thing. And secondly, you can't just demand these high profile games from indie developers or AA studios because they don't have the budget for that. And they don't have the time for that. There's a lot of time that goes into these high production games. And, if you want games sooner, you're going to have to go backwards a little bit. So I'm going to end this chapter right there to say that, listen, as the future goes forward, we need to think about a physical platform that can store all of these games and store all of these gigabytes. And until that happens, the physical game market might just die out because games are getting too big, and that's it. So, as we discuss physical and digital games, we can't have our cake and eat it too. We have to choose what's great about one and what's great about the other, and the faults of one and faults of the other, and the opportunity of one and the opportunity of the other. I don't really think we should be going off of one is so much superior and the other one is call a medic. We can't be just thinking like that. We have to be going off of one's good for this opportunity, the other one's good for this opportunity. Cloud gaming is trash. It's just trash. I don't like cloud gaming. I don't like it. I don't think I'll ever be a part of it. No, stop. But as we end this video, just think about that next time. Is that are physical games dying? No, not necessarily, but if you want to have a physical release, you have to have the storage space for it, a physical media for it, and you have to understand that indie devs don't have the budget for that. If you want all digital games, that's great, but at the same time, there goes your storage space. There goes like a lot of value behind it. There goes a lot of pride behind releasing something physically. So both have their faults, but both have their opportunities. And I think I'll just end the video there and, just go into a concluding thoughts. So come on, I'll meet you over there, sailor. So I just want to put it out there that I think physical games have their place in my life. I think digital games have their place in my life. I love going on Xbox Game Pass and, just paying $15 a month and I download the game digitally and see if I like it or not. It's kind of like having, in my opinion, it's like having a Blockbuster card. If you remember Blockbuster, just kind of renting a game, having a subscription where you can just rent the game. And then if you really enjoy that game, like it did with Night in the Woods, I bought it digitally. I purchased it and I love Night in the Woods. And it's because of Game Pass, I got to try it out and I'm like, oh, wow. Super cool. Fantastic. Because I rented it. But I like my physical games because I really do value it. Again, I would love a physical edition of Night in the Woods. And unfortunately, that was put on the back burner for reasons that I don't want to bring up in this video. Google it. But that's just it. It's they have their place in my life. Physical games have their place in my life. I like having a physical release in my hands. I do. But at the same time, I think digital is just fine the way it is. I think if we look back on where the storage space is, of course, we need to think about physical media in the future, but I think digital has its place too in my life where I don't have to get up and I can just play the latest NBA game without buying the physical edition, because it is just kind of like one of those games I'll just sit back and play a basketball game. It's fine. It's cool. But, I think I'll just end it with that. If you have any thoughts about this, if you have your own arguments for physical or digital, I want to read your thoughts in the comments down below. I want you to go down there, write your thoughts. What's good and bad about physical and digital releases? Which one do you prefer? Which one do you lean towards, a digital or physical? Write your reasonings down below. Let's have a discussion down there. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you enjoyed these kinds of videos, well, there's a subscribe button right down below where you can click and get updated whenever we do release a video, whenever you have the time. I don't know. And again, if you want to listen to the EP, The Essence of Life, it's up on Spotify, Apple Music, all that junk. So, I don't know, ruin your earbuds and listen to my EP. I don't really care. But until the next video, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, man. I really appreciate it. And, I don't know, see you in the next one. Peace. Please don't listen to it. I'm very embarrassed. Mami, what was that? We're keeping that in.